Welcome to AI and Automation in Action, where we show business leaders how to turn AI from a buzzword into measurable operational leverage. If you're serious about operational efficiency and responsible AI adoption, you're in the right place.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another edition of AI and Automation in Action, where we dive through real-world use cases of AI and automations that we've built for other clients or for ourselves to hopefully spark some ideas for you to use in your own organization. So today we're going to be revisiting an automation that we designed in the early stages of innovative automations. This is one that we built probably over a year or so ago, and we've taken the concept of it and we said, okay, how can we make this better? So we're already in, probably version 3 of this now from where we were originally started. So we have an outside sales organization, and so we've got reps that make outbound phone calls to talk to folks about technology, about AI and automation, and how they can take advantage of these technologies. And so about a year ago, we put together an automation that said, how can we help our reps get feedback on how they're doing? And so we had the capability that we said, okay, well, our calls are recorded and transcribed. We've got a framework that we want them to use when they call and speak to prospective clients. How can we see how well they're doing against that transcript and those expectations and that framework? And so what we built was, it was a single call ingestion, if you will. So they go and download their call from our dialer and they get the transcript from it. And we built a custom GPT that says, here's the framework that we want followed on these calls. Analyze how well they did against that framework and give feedback in terms of what did they miss, what could they do better, what are the next steps, what are the follow-up items. And tremendous value in that. I think I mentioned it in one of our early podcasts, was this was something that we were actually paying an outside sales coach to do for us on an ongoing basis. And we were able to take that money and invest in more people for our team. So instead of AI reducing headcount for us, it actually allowed us to hire more people. But that automation was a little problematic in that it was a single point in time call review. And what I mean by that is it's evaluating that call that the rep has to say, I want you to give me feedback on, or the manager has to say, give us feedback on. And it's not an ongoing analysis. And what we found is that, a lot of times if a rep had a really bad call, they'd say, hey, can we run this through it and see what it would suggest we do differently or how I could have done better. And if they had a really successful call, they could say, hey, tell me what I did on this one that I can replicate for all the others. But it wasn't an aggregate. It was a point in time review this call, then review this call and give coaching feedback. And one of the things we found was that a lot of times you get in the busyness of the week, people forget about it. We would remind during sales meetings and huddles, hey, have you done that? Oh, no, I need to download the transcript, but hey, they're busy. And so a lot of times that wasn't getting used on a consistent basis. It was used when there were problems or things that were glaring that, hey, I need help on. But we wanted to make this into something that was more valuable ongoing and from an aggregate viewpoint. So what we were able to go out and revise, we took that original automation and said, okay, how do we bring this in and provide this to where we're looking at not just a single call in this review, but we're looking at all calls. And then how do we tie that into where it does it automatically? Someone doesn't have to manually go do that themselves. So what we were able to do is say, okay, let's go out and connect to our phone system that does the dialing, that does the recording and transcription. And can we connect to that? And once we can do that, then what information can we get from that system that we can pull back into this automation? And then how do we leverage that? So I want to share what we were able to put together as it relates to that. We'll talk through what those components look like and how it works. Okay, so again, we built out the automation and it goes out and talks to our dialing platform. And the first thing we wanted to do was look at the actual metrics, because there's a lot of data that you can drill down into when it comes to the actual metrics themselves. Are they making enough dials? Are they getting enough conversations with folks that are answering the phone? Are they actually getting through to the decision maker or the people that we want to talk to? And then of those conversations with the right people, how many of those are turning into appointments? And we don't want to look at just a single day. We want to look at how does today compare to the last week and then the previous week, because that gives us trends, it gives us reference points, and it helps us dial in, okay, if our conversion from dials to conversation is off, that means either we've got a bad list where we're not actually getting through to the right people, or something's going on in that dialing process to begin with. So are we getting through to the right people that are answering the phone is kind of a list problem. From there to get to conversations with decision makers or the right people that we want to talk to, that becomes, a script issue or component that we want to dive into. And then the final number of those conversations with decision makers, how many of those convert into actual bookings or appointments, that tells us how well we conveyed value in that conversation. So a lot of these metrics are inherent to the phone system that we're using, but it didn't give it to us in the manner that we felt like was most valuable to review. So that was the first thing, is how do we get those metrics out? So again, we tied in through an API key into the phone system. Actually, the phone system has recently added an MCP functionality where we can query that a little more directly as opposed to the API. But in our instance, we developed using the API. So we sucked that information out of the phone system. And then we told our AI model that, hey, here's how we want to analyze this. Here's how we want to visualize that. So let's build that dashboard, if you will, or report, if you will, in this manner that gives us this information. So that was the first step. Pretty simple to do that. Pull the information out, run the metrics, display a dashboard. Where this really becomes valuable, and again, I go back to, we had the ability that we could look at individual calls and analyze those, but we did not have the capability where we could say, how am I doing today on all calls? Or more importantly, of the people that we talk to, let's grade all of those at once and let's do an aggregate, coaching session of what we can do better. And so that's what we built out. And so what this allows us to do is we can actually look at not just yesterday or a single call. We can look at the week so far. How are we doing week to date compared to last week? And what it's doing is it's actually not just pulling the metrics from the phone system, it's actually pulling the transcripts in aggregate and then analyzing all of those at the same time to say, how are they doing as a whole? And the advantage that this gives us is that this is not an opinion. This is not a, hey, I feel like. This is based upon data and it's non-biased. So it allows a non-biased person to come in and say, okay, well, based upon what you're supposed to be covering, based upon what you actually said, here's what the data is showing and here's what we would recommend. This gives us that functionality to where now we can analyze from an entire week or entire day or 2 week period, and we get to specifics on here's what you could do better, here's things that are impeding you, here's key coaching insights, and then we get down into the manager action flags where it says, okay, to help this up, this rep out or these reps out, here's what we recommend you as a manager do on this. And so what has given us the ability to do now is we start our mornings with a sales huddle, where it used to be, hey, how did your day go yesterday? How many people did you get to talk to? What was the feedback you got? It's changed it from that to, here's our report card. Okay, did we make enough dials? Boom, we see that right away. Did we convert enough of those into conversations and then into appointments? If not, hey, what do we need to dive into there? And then, well, hey, let's look at what the candid feedback is that it's giving us. And we can agree or disagree. I mean, AI it's not 100%. It's getting better every day. It's, only going to get better from here. A year ago, we were 30, 40% accurate. Today, we're probably 80 plus, and it's getting better every single day. But I would say that from a human perspective, we're not 100%. And so this is just another tool that gives us discussion points and opens that up for discussion with us. Now, so this is generated, from the phone system itself. What we did from there is we said, okay, we can take this information out through an API, feed it into an AI model with the instruction set that we want it to base it against, the output that we want from that, and then turn that into a PDF. So that was one component of the automation. So we took that original call recording analysis, put it on steroids, and said, okay, let's do this in aggregate, and then let's put it into a nice, easy to read report. and generated that PDF. So that was the first automation with this. But we didn't want this to be something that is just done on demand, right? Because that was the other component that, before people could analyze their calls, but they had to remember to go do it. We wanted this to be an automated system. So every morning that they have this report to go from. So from there, we said, okay, we've built this skill set out, if you will. We've built the connections to the data. Now let's build the automation component that says, okay, let's do this on a schedule. So we schedule this to run every morning at 7 a.m. to review the previous day and previous weeks. From there, we want to tie it into our email so that it can actually go out via email and land in our inbox as well as in our Microsoft Teams channel. So that allows us to come in every morning in our email inbox that we can keep an archive of these. We've got the file there. We've also got it in our Microsoft Teams channel. So when we launch our sales huddle in the morning, it's right there in front of us. And now we can dig in and do this on a consistent basis. Even if I'm not there, even if the meeting doesn't occur, it's still there to review when you have it. And it's not something someone has to remember to go and do. So for us, this was, a great enhancement to our process. When it comes to how it works for you, maybe it's not a sales system. Maybe it's your customer service. If you want to aggregate how is your service team doing and taking care of your clients, and you've got call transcripts, and did they offer the right solutions? We can tie that information in. You just need to be able to connect the systems and leverage the automations for it. So whether it's sales, a CRM, a service component, whether it's emails that you're sending back and forth, your CRM, we basically have to just have an API and then a model that we want to judge against. So if this sparks interest for you, reach out to us. We'd love to talk through how we could put something similar to work for you. It's all about connecting the systems in a defined process and then scheduling the automations. Huge time saver for us, huge value add. And it took us maybe a couple of days to put this together. So fairly simple to do, big output, big gain that we receive from this. So if you have questions, reach out. Thanks again for tuning in to another edition of AI and Automation in Action.
Thanks for tuning in to AI and Automation in Action. If today's conversation sparked ideas about how AI or automation could improve your operations, we'd love to continue that discussion with you. Join us next time as we showcase another real-world implementation and break down how to deploy AI responsibly and effectively. And if you want to brainstorm with our team, email us anytime at ideas@innovativeautomations.ai. Until next time.